r/ask Reddit, what's your true life story that nobody will believe? I was declared a divine gift by the monks of St. Catherine's Monastery in Egypt. The monastery was built around the alleged burning bush from the Book of Exodus, and since I was really into religions at the time, I asked the monks some questions about the bush and whether they have any other interesting relics in their monastery. The monks went silent and asked me and my family to follow them down to the gates of the burning bush. They let us see the alleged remnants of the burning bush, even though we were/are not Orthodox Christians. This is a privilege granted only to high officials in the Orthodox Church, and they said we were the first secular people to ever see the bush. After visiting the bush, the monks gave me some kind of a special blessing where they declared me as that divine gift and a silver ring with Greek writing on it. I was a kid at the time, so I didn't really react to it in an extravagant way, but my mom was dumbfounded for days, since she is a very religious person. Now at an older age, I'm just wondering if they do this every now and then as a prank, or if they actually saw something special in me. When I was in the 3rd grade, my appendix ruptured, putting me in the hospital for a long period of time. This was at the time when Beanie Babies were at their peak, and I was obsessed with collecting them. One day, as I was lying in the hospital bed watching television, I hear a knock at the door and 3 nuns from the local Catholic diocese walk in. It was Valentine's Day and they were visiting the sick children. They start talking to me, asking me how I am feeling, etc. This is when I noticed that one of the nuns has a basket full of Beanie Babies that they had been giving out to the children. I asked about them and was told that they had the entire basket to give away, but there were few children on the ward. I asked if I could have them. The nuns agreed that I could have the Beanie Babies, but first I had to convert to Catholicism. I did it. Right at the moment I got the Beanie Babies, my parents walked into the room and saw me, 3 nuns, and a basket full of Beanie Babies praying for my soul. TLDR, I converted religions for a basket full of Beanie Babies. I've posted this before, but here we go again. When we were younger, we would play a game where we would throw a pot lid as far as we could into the water and someone would have to fetch it. Basically like playing fetch with your dog. The kid who would win was the one who swam the furthest. One day, a kid threw the lid really far, but the other kid was determined to get it. He swam out really far and then bam! The crocodile got him and dragged him underwater. I was in Mexico way past my visa allowance, was only allowed 90 days but was there for about 6 months at the time of this story. I was driving and passed a police car going too fast, so I got pulled over. I should mention I was also illegally working in Mexico at the time as well and had my uniform and stuff in my trunk. As I'm pulled over and doing the whole license registration thing, the cops asked me for my visa. I told them it was at my house, which was not too far away, and if they would allow me to go get it. At this point I just wanted to be alone for a second so I could make some calls and find out what to do. They asked me if they let me get it, would it even be valid? Not wanting to lie, I told them no, it was expired, and asked them what now. They started explaining to me that they would have to take me to jail and then deported. At this point I am talking to one officer while the other is searching my car and finds my uniform. They ask me if I'm working in Mexico as well. At this point they are getting angry and start making vague threats about how I will be getting the same treatment Mexicans get when they are in the US working illegally and get caught. At this point I realize they didn't realize my license was a Canadian license and that I was Canadian. I told them this and instantly the situation completely changed. Now they don't care about the visa and are asking me tons of questions about Canada. Is it cold all year? Do bears wander the streets of Toronto, etc.? We talked for quite a while and they seemed really interested in Canada and were really friendly with me when they realized I wasn't American. So when I calmed down a bit after talking with them, I figured might as well ask again what they want to do about the visa situation. They seemed apologetic and said unfortunately they already called it in, so they have to bring me to the station. As I am ready to start going with them, they hear the radio in their cruiser, so one goes to answer it. He comes running back to my car and tells me to quickly get in my car and follow them down the road and don't even think about trying to get away from them. At this point I have no idea what is going on, but I just do what he says and get in my car and follow them as they start speeding away, 100 plus in a 60. About 2 minutes down the road, a car bomb had gone off near a restaurant and injured, maybe killed, I never found out, a bunch of people. We pull up to the smoldering car and the cops get out and tell me to wait in my car. As I wait in my car they go and do their cop thing. After about 20 minutes, one of the officers comes up to my car, hands me my license, tells me to go home and not get caught again and get back to Canada ASAP. I stayed in Mexico another 8 months before I went back. My dad was married 2 times before my mom. When he was with his second wife, he would travel a lot for work. Which I knew. What I didn't know is that one night he came home to find his wife in bed with another man. Actually walked in on them. He left the room and came back with a gun. Shot the man dead, and wounded his wife. He turned himself in immediately and was sent to prison. He was sentenced to 10 years in a maximum security prison. In the last year he was in prison, which was the 4th year, he got out for good behavior, and since the judge ruled it a crime of passion, he met the prison minister. The prison minister was my mom. My dad is a murderer, my mom was the minister. I am the product of a conjugal visit. My husband had the opportunity to operate on a gorilla's knee once. They have essentially the same anatomy as humans, so they ask human physicians to operate on them in many major zoos. It was really cool, and afterwards they gave him a painting done by the gorilla as thanks. Apparently the gorilla was going through some adolescent rank wars with other male gorillas and had his knee battered and bitten, through the meniscus. I know, it's his story, not mine, but he doesn't get on the internet, and I think it's super cool and I'm really proud of him. Edit. We had it framed with the thank you note from Belly, the gorilla, and his trainer. A contractor found 2 guns in my attic. I'd never been up there in the 5 years I've owned the house. I called the police non-emergency line on the advice of an officer friend. Officer shows up but can't get up into the attic without a ladder, so I go out and fetch my stepladder. I am walking down the hall with the ladder, looking right at the officer when my cat, Piglet, gets under my feet. Without thinking, while looking the officer in the eye, I say, "Move, pig." Most awkward silence ever. Officer didn't say a word, just took the ladder and went up into the attic. I was camping. We had unpacked all of our stuff and had just finished setting everything up. We had put the bag of snacks, chips, granola bars, etc., on the picnic table. While we weren't paying attention, some raccoons jumped up on the table and stole the whole bag of our snacks. Oh well. So later on in the night we were all drinking and chilling out by the campfire. You could say we were drunk. It was also getting pretty dark. We hear rustling sounds coming from the picnic table behind us, where our cooler was. I grabbed my flashlight and started rushing over to the picnic table to confront the raccoon. I didn't turn on the flashlight because I wanted to surprise it. So, I'm rushing the picnic table and I point the flashlight and turn it on. It was not a raccoon. It was a bear. Standing on his hind legs, he had opened our cooler and was digging through it. He looks at me and goes back into the cooler and grabs our pack of hamburgers and starts to run off. I did the most logical thing that came to my drunken self and chased after the bear, yelling, "Give me back our hamburgers." I think I took him by surprise because he dropped the hamburgers and ran off into the forest. We ate those hamburgers the next day, they tasted like victory. So that's my story. No one believes me when I tell it, but my wife and 2 of my friends were there and saw everything. TLDR, drunkenly chased down a bear and reclaimed our hamburgers. I met a guy online. We emailed and messaged, this was before texting was a thing, and went out a few times. I liked him but wasn't sure about it. He called me pretty regularly. Again, this was pretexting. One day, no calls. That night I called and left him a message. No return call. I called his work the next day, and he hadn't shown up. I called the police, who did a well-person check at his house, but he wasn't there. The next day the police called me back. They'd found his body. He'd been murdered by one of his neighbors, and I had to testify at the trial. I am not who I am. Back in 1990s I walked out of a hospital with another patient's identity and have been living as that person ever since. At that time I already did not have any next of kin, and no, I do not know whatever happened to the person I took documents from. I have been living in a different country, and I had been issued passports in the name of that person twice already. I had submitted my biometric data, and as I had no problem obtaining the passports, I assume that my identity donor is most probably dead and gone. I am not a criminal, and I am a sort of wealthy expat businessman here with a permanent residence permit. I had never been to my homeland since and am working on obtaining citizenship here.